Have you ever thought that living alone might mean loneliness? Or could it be a journey filled with meaning and freedom, especially for women in their middle years? I've heard this question from so many women in their 50s, 60s and beyond. Women who've been told that being on their own is a sign of failure, yet deep down, they wonder if it might be something more, something empowering, something beautiful, a path to discovering who they truly are, free from the expectations of others. I've turned to the wisdom of Carl Jung, the renowned Swiss psychologist who understood the depths of the human soul, and I've found a truth that can change the way we see women living alone. A truth that says it's not about isolation, but about self-discovery, about growing into the fullest version of yourself, about finding peace in your own company, a peace that radiates from within. For those of us in our middle years, choosing to live alone can be a way to reclaim our independence, to live a life of meaning and tranquility, to embrace a journey that's not defined by societal norms, but by our own inner truth. In this video, I'll share Carl Jung's insights on the journey of women living alone, exploring what it truly means to live this way, how society reacts to these women, the profound process of self-discovery that Carl Jung called individuation, and the power of self-love in finding peace, a peace that allows you to live fully, love deeply, and shine brightly, whether you're on your own or sharing your life with someone special. Let's begin by exploring the true meaning of living alone, a journey that many misunderstand as loneliness, but is actually filled with meaning. For so many women, especially in their middle years, the idea of living alone can feel daunting. Society often paints it as a sign of failure, a life unfulfilled, or a story that's missing its happy ending. But what if that's not the truth at all? What if living alone is one of the most powerful choices a woman can make, a choice that leads to self-discovery, to growth, to a deeper understanding of who she truly is, free from the expectations of others? When a woman chooses to live alone, she's not running away from connection, she's running toward herself. She's creating a space where she can listen to her own heart, where she can heal, grow, and become the fullest version of herself. A space where she can find a kind of peace that doesn't depend on anyone else, a peace that comes from within. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He saw living alone as a sacred opportunity, a chance for a woman to embark on a journey of self-discovery, to explore the depths of her own soul, to uncover the parts of herself she may have hidden away for years, the parts that make her unique, the parts that make her whole. It's like stepping into a quiet sanctuary, a place where the noise of the world fades, and all that's left is the sound of your own voice, your own truth, guiding you toward a life that feels authentic, a life that feels yours, a life where you can live alone with peace, not because you're incomplete, but because you've learned to be complete on your own. This isn't about isolation, it's about empowerment. It's about choosing a path that honors your own needs, your own dreams, your own journey, a path that allows you to live with a sense of freedom and fulfillment that's hard to find when you're constantly seeking validation from others. Carl Jung's insights remind us that women living alone aren't missing out. They're stepping into a space where they can grow, where they can thrive, where they can discover the beauty of their own company, a beauty that radiates outward, touching everyone around them. Have you ever felt the quiet strength that comes from being on your own, the kind that makes you feel more connected to yourself than ever before? Now let's look deeper through Carl Jung's lens, a perspective that reveals why living alone can be such a powerful journey of growth. Carl Jung gave us a way to understand this choice in a way that's both profound and liberating. He believed that living alone isn't just a lifestyle, it's a sacred part of what he called individuation, a journey where a woman becomes her truest self. Not the self that others expect her to be, but the self she was always meant to be, whole, authentic, and free. Individuation is about peeling back the layers, facing the parts of yourself you've hidden away, the parts Jung called the shadow, those fears, doubts, and insecurities we bury deep inside, often because we're afraid of what they mean or because society tells us they're not acceptable. Things like the fear of being alone, the fear of not being enough, or the longing for connection that we've pushed aside to please others. For women living alone, this journey means looking at those shadows with courage. It means sitting with the parts of yourself you've ignored, the parts that ache for love, for freedom, for peace, and learning to embrace them, to love them, to integrate them into who you are, so that you can live with a sense of wholeness that doesn't depend on anyone else. Carl Jung taught us that when a woman does this, when she faces her shadow and grows through this process, she finds a kind of inner peace that's unshakable, a peace that allows her to live alone with a quiet strength, a peace that makes her glow with a light that others can't help but notice, a light that comes from knowing herself deeply, from loving herself fully. It's like opening a door to your own soul, a door that leads to a space where you're free to be exactly who you are, where you can breathe deeply, where you can find a stillness that feels like home, a stillness that Carl Jung believed is the foundation of true growth, true freedom, true love. This journey of individuation isn't always easy, but it's one of the most beautiful gifts a woman can give herself. A gift that allows her to live alone with peace, not because she's hiding from love, but because she's ready to love from a place of wholeness, a place of truth. Have you ever felt the freedom that comes from facing a part of yourself you've hidden away, the kind that makes you feel lighter, more alive? Let's explore what women living alone truly seek in love, a perspective that might surprise you. When a woman chooses to live alone, when she's walked the path of self-discovery and faced her own shadows, she doesn't approach love the way society might expect. She's not looking for someone to complete her, to fill a void, or to make her feel whole, because she's already done that work on her own. She's already found a sense of wholeness within herself, a sense of peace that comes from knowing who she is, from loving herself deeply, from living a life that feels true to her soul. Carl Jung taught us that these women seek a different kind of love, a love that doesn't come from lack, but from abundance, a love that's not about needing someone to make them feel enough, but about sharing their fullness with someone who's equally whole, someone who can meet them in a space of mutual growth, mutual freedom, mutual joy. For women living alone, love isn't about completion. It's about overflow. It's about two people coming together to create something even more beautiful, not because they need each other to survive, but because they choose each other to thrive, to grow, to love, in a way that feels expansive, like a river that flows freely, carrying both their hearts along in a current of shared understanding, shared dreams, shared peace. Carl Jung's insights remind us that this kind of love is rare, but it's what women living alone often seek, because they've learned to love themselves first. They've learned to find peace in their own company, to live alone with a sense of inner calm that doesn't waver, even when the world around them tries to tell them they're incomplete without a partner. They know better. They know that their worth doesn't depend on someone else, that their happiness doesn't hinge on a relationship, that their life is already full, already meaningful, already theirs. This is what makes their approach to love so powerful, so different, so inspiring. It's a love that comes from a place of strength, not weakness. A love that's rooted in authenticity, not dependency. A love that allows them to choose a partner who adds to their joy, not one who defines it. Have you ever felt the difference between loving from a place of need and loving from a place of fullness? The kind that feels like a gift you're giving, not a gap you're filling. Now, let's look at how society reacts to women who choose to live alone, a perspective that might open your eyes. Women living alone, especially in their middle years, often find themselves at the center of a paradox. They're both admired and misunderstood, celebrated and feared, seen as both inspiring and threatening, all because they've chosen a path that challenges the norms we've been taught to follow. A path that defies the idea that a woman's worth is tied to a relationship, to a partner, to a role she's expected to play. Carl Jung understood this reaction through the lens of the shadow. He taught us that society often projects its own fears onto those who live differently. When people see a woman living alone with peace, thriving in her own company, they're confronted with their own shadows, their own fears of loneliness, their own insecurities about independence, their own doubts about whether they could ever be enough on their own. And that confrontation can lead to a mix of emotions, from admiration to unease, from inspiration to judgment. On one hand, some people admire these women. They see their independence as a kind of quiet strength, a courage to live life on their own terms, to find joy in their own presence, to build a life that's full and meaningful without needing someone else to complete it. They see a woman who's learned to love herself, who's walked the journey of self-discovery, who's found a peace that radiates outward, touching everyone around her. On the other hand, others react with fear or misunderstanding. They might label her as lonely, unfulfilled, or even selfish, because her choice to live alone challenges their own beliefs. It forces them to question whether they've been living authentically, whether they've been brave enough to face their own shadows, to find their own peace. And that can be uncomfortable, even threatening, to a society that often equates a woman's value with her role in a relationship. But for women living alone, these reactions are just noise. They've learned to rise above the judgments, to let go of the need for approval, to live with a kind of inner calm that comes from knowing their truth. A calm that Carl Jung believed is the hallmark of true growth, true freedom, true love. Their independence is like a flame, both illuminating and challenging, a reminder that living alone isn't a loss, but a gain of self, a gain of peace, a gain of a life that's truly theirs. Have you ever felt society's judgment for choosing your own path? And how did it make you see yourself? Let's explore the most important thing women living alone can do: living authentically, the key to finding true peace. For women who've chosen to live alone, who've walked the path of self-discovery and faced society's mixed reactions, there's one thing that brings it all together. One thing that allows them to find the peace and meaning they seek. And it's not about finding a partner. It's not about proving anything to the world. It's about living authentically, about loving themselves so deeply that their lives become a reflection of their truest selves, a reflection that radiates with a quiet, unshakable peace. Carl Jung believed that authenticity is the light that shines from the journey of individuation. When a woman lives as her true self, when she embraces every part of who she is, the parts she loves and the parts she's learned to accept. She steps into a kind of freedom that's rare and beautiful, a freedom that allows her to live alone with peace, not because she's hiding from the world, but because she's found her place within it, a place that feels like home, a place that's hers alone. This authenticity isn't about perfection. It's about honesty. It's about letting go of the need to be anything other than who you are. It's about setting boundaries that honor your heart, about choosing a life that feels true to you, even if it doesn't fit society's mold, even if it means walking a path that others don't understand. Because when you live this way, you find a peace that's deeper than anything external can give. A peace that comes from knowing yourself, from loving yourself, from being yourself, fully and unapologetically. Carl Jung's insights remind us that this self-love journey is what allows women living alone to find true meaning. They've learned to fill their own cup, to nurture their own soul, to create a life that's rich with purpose, with joy, with love. Not the kind of love that depends on someone else, but the kind that begins within, the kind that makes them whole, the kind that makes them free. It's like a gentle breeze that carries you forward, a breeze that whispers you're enough, you're worthy, you're home, and that whisper becomes a song of freedom, a song of peace, a song that only you can sing, but one that touches everyone who hears it, reminding them of the beauty of living authentically, the beauty of loving yourself. Have you ever felt the peace that comes from living as your truest self? The kind that makes you feel whole, no matter who's by your side. Let's finish with a deeper look at living alone, a journey filled with meaning and freedom. We've explored the truth about women living alone, a path that's often misunderstood, but one that's filled with incredible beauty. From the journey of self-discovery that allows a woman to grow into her truest self, to the profound process of individuation that Carl Jung so beautifully described, where she faces her shadows and finds a peace that's all her own. We've seen how these women seek a love that overflows from their fullness, not a love that completes them. How society reacts with both admiration and fear, often projecting its own shadows onto their independence, and how living authentically, loving themselves deeply, becomes the key to finding true peace. A peace that allows them to live alone with a quiet strength, a peace that radiates outward, touching everyone around them. Carl Jung taught us that living alone is a sacred part of becoming whole. It's a journey where women living alone find their own light, a light that shines from within, a light that comes from facing their shadows, from embracing their truth, from loving themselves in a way that's deep, real, and free, a light that allows them to find peace, not because they've turned away from love, but because they've learned to love from a place of wholeness, a place of joy, a place of strength. For women in their middle years, this journey is a gift, a chance to live alone with peace, to create a life that's rich with meaning, a life that feels like a song of freedom, a song that carries them forward, reminding them that they're enough, that they're worthy, that they're home, no matter who's by their side, because their greatest love story begins with themselves, with the courage to live authentically, with the beauty of their own company, with the peace that comes from knowing they've chosen a path that's truly theirs. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever felt the freedom of living alone, or the peace that comes from loving yourself fully? If this video touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to Ageless Philosophies, and share it with someone who might need to hear this today, because you deserve a life filled with meaning, a life filled with peace, a life that begins with the beauty of your own soul, and I'm here to support you on that journey, cheering you on as you embrace your truth and find the freedom you've always deserved.